Hello, this is Crusade, the Crescent and the Cross, where we will learn about the defining conflict of the Middle Ages, which pitted the two great faiths of the medieval world, Christianity and Islam, against one another. Let's go. If we're going to talk about the Crusades, we need to know what the Crusades are. Well, simply, the Crusades are a series of wars that are fought by Western European knights at the request of the Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church. And these wars have the goal of taking the Holy Land back from the Muslims and defending the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire, remember, is the old Eastern Roman Empire. But really, what are the Crusades? Most things have a really pure purpose when they begin, but as time goes on, that purpose can be convoluted and changed to fit someone's particular political narrative. So not only do the Crusades have the goal of taking back the Holy Land from Muslims or helping defend Constantinople and the rest of the Byzantine Empire from the Turks, the Crusades also take on different goals, like attacking the Byzantine Empire itself for the city of Venice, or expelling and killing Jews in Europe, or expelling Muslims from Spain, or getting rid of violent knights in Europe, or converting Northern European pagans, or attacking heretics in southern France. As time went on, the idea of crusade, which began with this idea of taking the Holy Land back from the Muslims, gets applied to all of these other different things that benefited the people of Western Europe, or the Christians of Western Europe at least, but it definitely did not fit the original idea of crusade. Here's some pictures of the Holy Land. This is the Western Wall in Jerusalem. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is a church built over where it's believed Jesus was buried. And here's the Dome of the Rock, which is built above the platform where Muhammad was taken up into heaven and given the Quran by the angel Gabriel. To be specific, the Holy Land is the city of Jerusalem and the other areas around it that are important to the Abrahamic religions. Remember, the Abrahamic religions are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's important to the Jews because the Holy Land is where King David and King Solomon both ruled. If you've read a lot of Bible stories, most of them are going to take place right here in the Holy Land. Today we'd call the Holy Land Israel, makes up a good portion of the Holy Land. It's the Jews' ancient homeland. It's also the site of the Jewish temple. For Christians, not only is it important for these reasons up here, but because this is where Jesus lived and where he preached his message. And then to Muslims, the Holy Land is important because of all these things above, but also because this is where Muhammad journeyed and was carried up into heaven, just like I mentioned in the last slide. So this area is very important to all three faiths. And only one faith can really control it in the Middle Ages. They don't know how to get along very well. So this struggle to control the Holy Land is what sets up the Crusades. Let's look at the situation in the Middle East as we lead up to the Crusades. Watch the map up here. I'm going to reference this. The Fatimid Caliphate right here in Egypt controlled the Holy Land at the outset of the Crusade period. In 1009, an anti-Christian caliph is like an emperor, destroyed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. So he destroys the church where Jesus was buried. His son works with the Byzantines are up here, to rebuild it, but this creates anger among Western Christians. Western Christians kind of feel like they're snubbed. They don't get a say in the rebuilding of their holy church. In the mid-1000s, the Seljuk Turks arrive and they conquer a lot. They conquer the Abbasid Caliphate in the Middle East, which would be what is now Iraq and Iran. They conquer the Holy Land right here from the Egyptian Fatimids. They conquer Byzantine land in Asia Minor. And they come really, really close to Constantinople. Constantinople would be right here at the edge of this peninsula where my arrow is. They conquer basically right up to the shore, and they're looking across the Bosporus Strait, looking at Constantinople. At first, the Seljuks prevent Christian pilgrims from visiting the Holy Land, but eventually they reopen the area to pilgrims when they realize that these pilgrims are bringing money, right? They have to stay somewhere, they have to eat somewhere. It's just like tourists today. Meanwhile, the situation in Western Europe is just as turbulent. Remember, when Rome falls, Europe is controlled in large part by these warring chieftains. As time goes on, they get the shiny armor. They start to call themselves knights instead of just warlords. But they're still very violent. And the church tries to get these knights to stop being so violent. They pass laws like the Peace and Truce of God, which bans fighting on holy days, so on Sundays, Christmas, Easter. It also forbids the killing of the defenseless. So if you're a knight and you're broke, the church says you're not allowed to raid a village, kill people, and take their money. But it doesn't really work. The knights keep on fighting. There's recent issues in the 1000s that really fire up the religious in Europe. One issue is called the investiture controversy, which is a fight between the heads of the church and non-church leaders, so kings, dukes, barons, on who can appoint bishops. Bishops are they would be church leaders that sit at cathedrals. There's a question. If a cathedral is in my kingdom, do I get to appoint the bishop, or does the Pope get to appoint the bishop? Another issue is the East-West Schism of 1054. The Eastern Christians follow the Patriarch in Constantinople, whereas Western Christians follow the Pope in Rome. And in 1054, they both excommunicate each other. There's a hard division between the Western Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. And both of these make Western Europeans more passionately religious. It ramps up this interest in religion. On top of this, there's a system of inheritance in Europe at the time in which the oldest sons of nobles would receive land, but younger sons ended up as landless knights or monks. So if I was a noble in Western Europe and I owned 5,000 acres of farms, if I had 3 sons, all of my land would go to my first son. The other 2 wouldn't get anything. And they had to figure out basically what to do for a living. So they would become these landless knights who would go around pillaging and plundering, or they'd become monks. This is changed by a cry for help from the Byzantine emperor. So in the late 1000s, the Byzantine emperor Alexius I asks Pope Urban II, remember this is his rival in 1054 with the East-West Schism, the Pope and the Byzantine emperor and the Byzantine patriarch are no longer really getting along. They've excommunicated each other. But in the late 1000s, Alexius I asks the Pope, Urban II, to send a small elite force of knights to help him fight off the Seljuk Turks, which, remember, are looking right across the Bosporus Strait at him. So, in 1095, at the Council of Clermont, Pope Urban II calls on nobles in Western Europe to fight a crusade against the Muslim Turks. He accuses the Muslim Turks of persecuting Christians, killing them, and he offers forgiveness of sins to anyone who fights. Basically, if you went and fought this crusade, you had a golden ticket to heaven. Thousands of Europeans said they took up the cross. Okay, meaning they went out on crusade. They took up the cross and they headed east. Now, they were headed off to fight a war in the name of God. Both Christianity and Islam teach that killing is wrong. Neither has a concept of holy war, but both do have a concept of just war. Just war, not just war like only war. Just war as in a war that has purpose. The writings of a Christian theologian, St. Augustine, and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad both agree that war is at times justified, but only in defense and only as a last resort. So war is okay, but it has to be when you're defending yourself, according to both Christians and Muslims. However, religion is often used as an excuse for violence that exceeds these limits of just war, of a defensive war. Pope Urban presents these crusades as a pilgrimage with a little bit of just war mixed in. If you were to live, you're a pilgrim, but if you die, you're a martyr. Either way, you get a free ticket to heaven. So there's a total of 9 crusades to the Holy Land. They have minimal success. The Christians take a portion of the Holy Land for a couple hundred years, but they only last until 1291. Acre is the last city held by Christians, and it eventually falls. There then are several other crusades against groups in Europe. The Teutonic Order, Protestants, the Teutonic Order is an order of Crusader knights that led crusades into Northeast Europe, think Poland and Lithuania, and they fought pagans to try to convert them to Christianity. There were also crusades against Protestant groups or breakaway Catholic groups within Europe. And then there were crusades against other popes. At one point in time, there's a couple of different guys who claim that they're pope, and the other pope calls a crusade against the pope in France. So the fighting eventually ends between Muslims and Christians. But this division between Crescent and Cross, the scars left by the Crusades, persist right up until today. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in class.